town of Livermore was named for a sailor who jumped ship, an English sailor named Robert Livermore, back in the 1830s. He absconded from his boat in San Francisco or Monterey, I can't remember exactly which one, but moved his way up to Livermore, ended up marrying the daughter of a Mexican general in the area who had a big land grant. Gave a lot of land to Robert Livermore, and that sort of became the area that it's now planted to about 2,500 acres of grapes. One of the first commercial growing areas for wine grapes in California, tracing back to the 1830s, but really kind of late 1840s is when things started to take off a little bit. First great growing region, I think, in terms of quality. First international gold medal ever given to a California wine was a Livermore Valley Sauterne style wine, Semillon Sauvignon Blanc blend in 1889. Commemoration of the completion of the Eiffel Tower, World's Fair in France. It's an area that is uniquely suited to world-class grapes, certain world-class grapes. Cabernet Franc is my pet project, my grape of obsession, as it were. It grows extremely well here, as do the other Bordeaux varieties. And that's really kind of how Livermore's made its name on the Cabernet front with the Concannon clones of Cabernet, but also known as a Chardonnay, sort of the engine room of Chardonnay, as it were, with the Wente clones. Beautiful Chardonnay can be made here of a certain style, but it's an area that really has, I think, been important for the industry more from a viticultural standpoint than from a tourism standpoint or a knowledge of great winemaking. And I'm hoping to help lead that change in perception. We're very serious about maintaining consistency as we're improving quality. There are 40 wineries here, más o menos, that are active, and we have been able to form some organizations outside of our Wine Growers Association that are the aim of which is to improve quality, to provide education to winemakers, especially younger winemakers or less experienced winemakers, to help improve quality. The Wine Quality Alliance is something that I helped to found a couple of years ago, and we're very cognizant of the fact that we've been given something beautiful here in terms of viticultural potential. And I'm not a religious man, but if I were, I would say it's a sin to not take advantage of all of the things that we have and not try our hardest and work as diligently as we can to improve those things, to make the most of what it is that we have. And I think that we're beginning to see that more and more in terms of awards for wineries at various important wine competitions and in magazines and that sort of thing. So that's a somewhat subjective way of looking at things, but I do believe that based upon what we hear from our customers and wine enthusiasts, that they really are enjoying Livermore more and more in terms of what they actually get in the bottle. So my last name is Mirassou. Born and raised in the South Bay. So actually born in Salinas, but moved to San Jose a couple years after I was born. I'm the sixth generation of the Mirassou family in the wine business. We're the oldest winemaking family in the country. We started making wine in San Jose in 1854. So
I did not know that.
6 years before Abraham Lincoln was president, my family's making wine in San Jose. 4 years after California became a state. My son is my assistant winemaker. He's the seventh generation of the family. So I grew up in South San Jose. The winery Mirassou Vineyards was in the east side, in the Evergreen area of San Jose. I worked at the family winery as a kid, doing all the scut work that kids who are family should be doing, sweeping warehouses, working on bottling lines, that kind of stuff, disgorging champagne. We could call it champagne back then.
Yeah, that's right.
Can't do it anymore. But decided when I was going off to college that the wine business wasn't in my future. So I went off to Washington, D.C. as an undergrad, and then New York for graduate school in something mostly unrelated, I suppose, to the wine business. I have a master's in literature. I was going to teach college literature, write books, that sort of thing. Ended up getting back to California a couple years after marrying for the first time my now late wife, and having a couple of kids in New Jersey. We moved to California so my parents could kind of see the kids growing up for a little while, and we were going to go back to New Jersey, where my late wife's family is from. Nobody ever moves back to New Jersey after coming to California. And then eventually got involved with my father, who had left the family business to start another label, which doesn't exist here anymore. But then we started Stephen Kent, our first and middle name. The family still owned Mirassou, so we couldn't use that as part of our brand. Stephen Kent became the brand name for a project that was really focusing on trying to prove we could grow world-class Cabernet Sauvignon in Livermore Valley. And have that perception become a reality for more than just ourselves, which I think we were able to do. And our focus over the last 10 years or so has been on Cabernet Franc for a variety of reasons. It does appear to be happening that way, which is exciting for us to sort of be on the front of the wave rather than way at the end, as we normally are, small wineries normally are.
Sure.
But viticultural reasons for it, certainly aesthetic reasons for Cabernet Franc, and I think important reasons for Livermore Valley as well. One of the things that I love about Livermore, and one of the legacies that I hope to be able to continue as one of the older people in Livermore now from a winemaking standpoint.
I wasn't thinking of you that way.
I appreciate it. I look in the mirror and it becomes very obvious to me.
I'm with you.
There's a lot of intellectual and historical capital in Livermore. As I mentioned earlier, one of the oldest wine growing regions in California. There are a lot of people, the Wente family in particular, who have been around for 140 years now, 150 years, who have generations still alive, who are still involved in the business, who are sages, who know sort of where all of the proper skeletons are buried, as it were, where the good sites are to farm, where the best vineyard might be to plant Cabernet Franc, for instance, what tools have worked in the past and which haven't, so that you can. It's a way of getting to a higher quality level in less time, I think. There's also, I think, a real camaraderie here with respect to sharing that information. I think we're all cognizant, all aware of the fact that whatever helps one winery here helps the whole valley. It's a small place, and consequently, negative things can also be felt maybe more deeply than they would be in larger areas. The ability to attract younger winemakers. We have Las Positas College here that has its own viticulture and enology program, which has moved a lot of very talented people through its ranks, including my wife, Beth, who's a graduate of that program and now my cellar master and assistant winemaker. There is a increased focus, let's say, on the idea of quality, on the idea, again, that we have this world-class growing area, and we have people who are serious and getting more and more serious all the time about making great wine from this area. Let's all help each other do it. And when you're working with the next generation of a family that's been here for a long time, and I consider myself a veteran now, it's been nearly 30 years, there's a special, I think, sense of responsibility too, to make sure that we are doing everything we can to move Livermore Valley forward.
Sure.
It's a very small brand, and I don't talk marketing talk all that often, but there is a sense that brand Livermore is important and ought to be more important for people given its history and its inherent quality. And it's something that should be protected and nurtured and brought along. And an influx of new talent coupled with that experience that we have here from older winemakers, I think makes it a dynamic place, which is important too. Well, geology is important. I think that may be the foundational part of the answer, let's say. One of the few valleys that's east-west oriented in California. Most, Sonoma, Napa, important wine valleys are north-south oriented. Most great wine regions in the world are affected by some body of water, whether it's a river, the Rhine, for instance, in Germany, or the Atlantic Ocean in Bordeaux, the Loire and Vienne rivers in the Loire Valley. San Francisco Bay, as you say, an hour by car from San Francisco to Livermore, but only about 35 miles or so as the crow flies. The notches and the hills that kind of ring the bay, and the temperature changes that are happening on the other side of the Altamont Pass east of us, where the Central Valley starts, is causing a sort of temperature vacuum effect, bringing in cold air from San Francisco every afternoon. It can be very windy here in Livermore. It's not as windy as the Salinas Valley is, but I think the wind is really the most important viticultural aspect of Livermore, and portends, I think, a movement toward grapes like Cabernet Franc. We're routinely picking Cabernet Sauvignon in mid-November here, especially in the eastern part of the valley.
Mid-November.
Wow. Gilmedi Vineyard, which is, in my mind, the best vineyard in Livermore. Quality was, and one of the best vineyards in California, frankly. It's a 100-acre vineyard, 64-acre vineyard on a 100-acre site, 1,000 feet above sea level on the eastern foothills, dramatically affected by the wind. Buds out late compared to other vineyards here in the valley, and then gets harvested really sort of the last major vineyard to be picked. That confluence of geology, these notches in the hills, and our proximity to warm temperatures, that's really the effect of climate change, I should say, is more of a wind-driven effect than a heat effect. But it leads to immense quality. It leads to the ability to ripen well and not over-ripen a lot of grapes. StephenKent.com, STEVENKENT.com, and you can go to Talk is our TOCK, exploretalk.com / Stephen Kent Winery, I think, to make reservations online as well, but you can get links on our website too.